My films, I'm proud to say that my films, both light and dark, I also made the Jeepers Creepers movies,
Right.
as you know, but I put a moral dilemma and a philosophical idea in each of my films, whether it's a horror film or something as full of light as Powder or Peaceful
A moral
Warrior.
dilemma like man against self, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, because that's what the book says, that some of our biggest battles are fought on the inside.
And that is the Peaceful Warrior
Yeah.
goes inside and fights his battles. And we all know how scary it
Yeah.
is for us to go inside.
We're going to take a look at a clip in just a minute, but before I wanted to read this, I read the book, Peaceful Warrior. It was lovely. It was a lot like the movie. I wanted to read one little paragraph here. It's talking about one of the realizations that Dan Millman came to. It says he realized that the world was peopled with minds, whirling faster than any wind, in search of distraction and escape from the predicament of change, the dilemma of life and death, seeking purpose and security and enjoyment and trying to make sense of the mystery. And everyone, everywhere, lived a confused, bitter search. Reality never matched their dreams, and happiness was always just around the corner, a corner that they never turned. And the source of it all was the human mind. Now, we think the mind is such a great thing, but it can also be a big stumbling block.
In Dan's book, and it's something I would like to have addressed a tiny bit more in the film, even though Nick does say, take the sword and slash the mind to ribbons. Dan's book makes a very bold statement that your mind is the problem. Throw the mind out, which is...
And once he said, once you can lose your mind, then you can come to your senses.
Exactly.
Find your heart. And that's where we're headed.
That's exactly why I wanted to make this movie. That idea is so beautiful, and to try and express it in a mainstream film that people would see was really the objective.
I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank
and
you.
so we're going to show a clip here of one of your lead character in the movie. Take a look.
Hey, listen, totally forgot about this. I gotta get this thing at the gym. It's pretty important. Can we make this quick? Sure. Ah! Hey! Hey! I'm talking to you! What the hell is wrong with you?
Said you were in a hurry.
So you pushed me off the bridge?
I emptied your mind.
You what?
I emptied.
No,
your
you
mind.
didn't. You threw me into the river.
And while you were falling, tell me, Dan, what were you thinking about?
I don't know.
Were you thinking about school?
No!
Grocery shopping?
No!
This thing you had to hurry off to?
No, I was...
Present. Devoted 100% to the experience you were having. You even had a word for it. Ah!
You're out of your mind, you know that?
It's taken a lifetime of practice.
So Nick Nolte was your lead actor. Was that a blessing or what?
It turned out to be more than a blessing. I think he is the magic engine that Peaceful Warrior runs on. It was an amazing piece of accidental casting. He was cast literally 7 days before we started shooting. That's how down to the wire we were trying to find an actor to play Socrates, which is one of the central characters in the book.
It's funny how you say accidental, because I think that those things that happen out of the blue are kind of synchronicity. I think it was kind of meant to happen.
I think you make an excellent point. I think you make an excellent point. I was originally nervous about working with Nick, and then I became completely in awe of him and then fell completely in love with him. And I think my experience on Peaceful Warrior with him, I would easily describe as one of the best actor work experiences I've had.
This character that he plays is so unlike any other character that he's ever played before, and I wonder, did he really have to get in character, or do you think Nick is really on a spiritual, he was on a spiritual path anyway when the movie came to him?
Nick is on a spiritual path, as most deeply committed artists are. I think he is on a spiritual quest, like we all are. And you know, we're all stumbling, fumbling, finding truths and moving along. And I would certainly, my own limited knowledge of Nick, I would say that Nick's on a quest, definitely.
And then he manifested this for himself in this movie. I like to think about manifesting things, you know, like when you're on that path, things come to you.
When the book was originally published and they were going to make a film out of it, this would be 20 years ago or more, they approached Nick, who was then a strapping young man doing Rich Man, Poor Man, to play the boy.
Dan Millman.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
So he has had the book in his mind and has been a fan of the book, I think, for...
So it's been in his heart for a long time.
Yes, and he was more than ready to play Socrates. Even though he's an actor who traditionally likes to prepare and research for months at a time, when I came to him, I said, Nick, I know you like to prepare, but we literally have 7 or 8 days. Your first shooting day is in 10 days, and that's what I have, and he made that okay. But I think he knew the book well enough that I think he knew he was venturing out comfortably, even though he hadn't had a lot of time to prepare.
This was a role made for him.
Exactly.
And so I think we have one more clip that I wanted to show, if we're ready for that clip.
I was ready to give this all up. But you stood here, and you told me that you wanted me to train again.
I told you a warrior does what he loves.
And this is what I love.
Chasing gold, living in fear that you might fail. That's what you love about it?
No, dreaming of standing up there and winning this thing. Of doing what has always felt like the thing that I was put here to do. I've been on a trampoline since before I could ride a bike because I loved it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was strong, but I'm not. Because I really tried to give this whole thing up. But I can't.
I love the message there that he says he can't give this up. He tried to give it up, and he couldn't let go of it. And, you know, it's just like a knowing that I think it's so beautiful when people finally know what they came here on this planet to do. And I think you have found your calling in film.
I think so, and it happened, you know, it happened as naturally, I think, as any sort of thing in our lives happens. I was encouraged to pick up a camera at the age of 13 and shoot a movie version of the short story that I had written for an English class in my freshman year in high school. And it was love at first sight, truly love at first sight, kind of like what Scott's talking about in that scene.
And then from there, magical things and magical relationships began to happen for you. Is
the
that
planets line up,
yes.
You know, but it did take many years. I still sat around for a long time waiting for the world to discover me, thinking, as we often do when we're young, that we are special enough that the world will come knocking on our door. It took me a few years out of high school to realize I got to keep making films, and I've got to make sure the right people see them. And Francis Coppola saw a backyard video that I had made called Something in the Basement, which was sort of a...
Francis Ford Coppola saw this.
He has been my champion, truly, and I have most of my career to thank him for. He saw this little backyard video that I'd made for $200. I shot it in 2.5 days at the house I was rooming in, and I wrote him a letter after he saw it at a film festival and said, you know, I'd like to do, I really would like some career counseling from you. I'd like a career in making features. Can you help me? And he ended up financing my first feature film out of his own pocket, Clown House, which was a sweet little kind of thriller, which led to me coming down to Los Angeles and, you know, fighting the good fight down here.
Where did you grow up?
Up in Northern California, in a little town called Martinez, which is about 40 minutes outside San Francisco.
And so, Francis Ford Coppola, how has that helped catapult your career?
Well, Francis has championed me. You know, he can open a lot of doors, and he's one of our most highly regarded filmmakers, and I still think one of our best storytellers. So when he says I have a kid that I think is really something, people turn and look, and they did. And I would say that he's really, you know, the primary character in getting me established here in Los Angeles and working as a filmmaker.
But now you're kind of basically, I mean, you've learned everything from him, and now you've got your own Victor Salva style of filmmaking. And
I like to think so.
Yeah, tell us how the process was for Peaceful Warrior. I want to talk about that.
Peaceful Warrior was a book that, as I said before, I read in a very dark time in my life The ideas were quite beautiful. I embraced them as much as I was able back then.